The film begins with a scene of someone who was managing a body in some place. After that, the body was mutilated and buried right away. Not long after, the scene switched to a man named Jack. Jack was waiting for a car to pick him up at the side of the road. It's a bit strange when we can see there is a road sign that states to never give a ride to anyone on this road. It's not known exactly what that means, but it's clear that every car that passes on that road never gives Jack a ride, both from newcomers and residents in the area. Jack, who was alone, could only surrender while suppressing his emotions. As time went on, Jack continued walking until he finally saw a man and a fighting. From there, the man immediately left the two of them in the middle of the road. Upon further questioning, it turns out that this woman's name is Veronica, and she is a native French speaker. However, she is capable and fluent in English. While Jack is from UK, and unfortunately, he does not understand French at all. For your information, Jack was in France at that time, but unfortunately, when he was about to go home, he was robbed by thugs in the middle of the road. As a result of that incident, all of his money, a cell phone, and also a car he was driving were even robbed by the thugs. But fortunately, he still have his passport with him. On the other hand, Veronica lives alone and plans to migrate to another country because she has no one else in the area. She told Jack that both of her parents had died from a chronic illness. When night fell, they decided to spend some time in the woods. While heating up her body, Veronica told Jack that she had recently been practicing to make autographs. To make a long story short, in the morning, Jack woke up and he noticed that Veronica was no longer next to him. As it turned out, the woman was bathing in a lake. Jack, who saw that, immediately plunged into the lake as well. After bathing together in the lake, they continued their journey by walking along the roads in the area. Unexpectedly, just as they'd given up on the situation, they come across a car that offers to take them for a ride. However, Veronica did not look happy at all, and she began to feel afraid of that man who intended to help them instead. By the way, this man is Grizzard. He is a native of the area, and he does not speak English very well. Therefore, he decided to take Jack and Veronica to stay at his house first, and meet his wife who previously lived in England. Well, Jack can't refuse the invitation, and they immediately go to the man's house. Following that, Jack and Veronica, who had arrived, were immediately greeted by Grizzard's wife, Mary. From there, Jack was sent into his bedroom by Mary, while Veronica was sent by Grizzard to her bedroom. After Mary left Jack alone in the room, Jack, who was already tired, immediately lay down on the bed and promptly fell asleep. By the time Jack awoke, it was already nightfall, then was curious about a box that had Grizzard written on it. When the box was opened, there were several photographs from Grizzard and Mary's youth. It doesn't stop there, there's also a photo of a boy and a girl. Based on what he had seen, Jack was very sure that Grizzard and Mary were not alone in this house. Despite this, neither Jack nor Veronica have seen a girl or boy in the house. After a dinner, Jack purposefully approached Veronica, who was smoking on the terrace of the house. Well, to get closer, Veronica also told him that she used to have a brother. But sadly, her brother was run over by a tractor when the two of them were playing hide and seek in a field. Then, Jack returned into the house to accompany Grizzard to watch TV that night. At that point, Jack said that he had to leave Grizzard's house as soon as possible because he had to go back to England to meet his family. Plus, Veronica also plans to migrate to other countries to continue her life there. Not long after that, Jack asked about Grizzard's children, but Grizzard strangely responded that he had no children at all. Then, Jack begins to wonder whose child is in the photograph that he had seen in his room earlier. Of course, Jack was surprised by Grizzard's statement, but he didn't want to bother and immediately went to sleep. When Jack awoke the following day, he took a shower before leaving Grizzard's house. However, the situation in house that morning was strangely quiet. Aside from that, Veronica was not there either. Just when Jack started to overthink, Grizzard suddenly appeared, while holding a hammer. Grizzard then said that Veronica had left earlier that morning and she didn't feel comfortable to wake up Jack, who was asleep. From what Grizzard said, Jack became more suspicious of Grizzard's actions instead, even though Grizzard admitted that he had just finished repairing the cupboard door. In the end, Jack began to believe Grizzard's words after seeing a letter written by Veronica before she left the house. Jack was upset after reading the letter. Unexpectedly, from the letter, Jack began to realize that something was wrong. To be more specific, Veronica's autographs did not match what he had seen when they were stranded on the side of the road. Unfortunately, just as he was about to realize the oddity, Jack was suddenly beaten by someone until he fainted at that moment. When he woke up, he had already been moved to a pickup car, which we had also seen at the beginning of the film. From here, it turns out that Jack was deliberately tied and kidnapped by a middle-aged man named Delacroix. Well, Jack immediately realized that he was already in a psychopath's lair. Furthermore, Delacroix also didn't provide more information and even fed him a plate of food. And it turned out that all the threats Delacroix gave to Jack were nothing more than bluffs. He simply did it so that Jack from fighting him at the moment. After that, the rope that was in Jack's hand was then untied, and Delacroix then took a photo of him with a camera. I'm not sure what is the point of taking his photo. Delacroix then carried him back into the pickup truck while put a duct tape in his mouth. It didn't stop there. Delacroix also intended to anesthetize him with a syringe he had prepared. Luckily, just as Jack was about to get an injection, Delacroix's mind drifted to the stove, which was still burning and emitting smoke. From there, Jack immediately tried to escape as quickly as possible and went as far away from the man's target. After he walked far away, Jack eventually made it back to Grizzard's house. Then, he saw Mary and Grizzard again, who were getting ready to leave the house. After the two of them left, Jack went straight into the house in search of Veronica. And sure enough, Veronica was locked up in one of the rooms. Without further ado, Jack released her right away. But unexpectedly, Grizzard and Mary had returned to the house at the time. Fortunately, they both managed to run away from the house. However, their escape was then realized by Mary and Grizzard, who had started to panic. In the end, they couldn't escape since they were just running compared to Mary and Grizzard, who were chasing them after using the car. As a result, Jack and Veronica have no other choice and forced to face Mary and Grizzard. Veronica still not giving up at that time, she then immediately brought Jack to run away to a cabin. They then decided to hide in it. But surprisingly, the cabin turned out to be Delacroix's cabin, and he had also arrived to the cabin. Delacroix, on the other hand, was confused after Veronica showed herself in front of him. At that moment, Jack threatened Delacroix with a shotgun, until he slipped and was stuck in a sharp iron. It's not known what Veronica was planning there, but it is clear that she has hidden Jack with a tarp. Moreover, Veronica was still not satisfied with Delacroix's death, she then stabbed a knife into his chest. After that, Grizzard and Mary entered the cabin. Grizzard then immediately spoke in French with Veronica. In French, Veronica referred to him as Dad. In fact, he still be able to imagine the form of Veronica when she was a child. In other words, Veronica had been lying to Jack the whole time. Same goes to Grizzard, who had told Jack he didn't have a child despite the fact that Veronica was his daughter. At this point, it was revealed that Veronica was a serial killer who could kill anyone for no apparent reason. Moreover, Veronica had also brutally murdered her younger brother and mutilated him after they had just finished playing hide and seek. So that's why at the beginning of the film we are shown a body and a person who did it. And that person turns out to be Veronica. But unfortunately, since Jack had gone mad with the situation, he no longer wanted to listen to Mary and Grizzard's explanation, which is in fact were Veronica's parents. Unfortunately, Mary, who was just wanted to tell Jack in English words, was immediately beaten by Veronica until she fainted. Then, only Grizzard remained at that point. Grizzard couldn't do anything else at the moment, and he also had no other choice and could only just give up after being left by Veronica and Jack. Before the film ended, Veronica took Jack away from the country with a happy smile on her face, while Jack himself felt the same way. At that time, Jack still had no idea that he would be killed by that woman as well. Basically, from the beginning of the film, we have been given a hint about the road signs that are prohibiting giving rides to anybody. We could assume that the road signs explains what Veronica, who was a psycho girl, had done before. She had also tried to run away from her parents for many times, until Grizzard was forced to put up the signboard so that his daughter would not being offered a ride out of the area. It didn't stop there. Grizzard and Mary done it because they didn't want their child to be imprisoned. On the other hand, they also don't want any more deaths, which keep increasing every month. Therefore, Grizzard is willing to pay Delacroix, who works as a butcher, to drug Jack and take him to a port. Honestly, I wonder why Grizzard, Mary or Delacroix didn't tell Jack right away that Veronica was a murderer. Well, when I reflect back to the earlier scene, I believe they already knew that Jack would have more trust in Veronica, who had played victim from the beginning and told her stories to Jack.